Lloyd's doing a series on the names of God. Good series. My question is why? Because unless you know somebody, you don't have a chance to like them or dislike them. Because the more you know a person, the more you're going to like them or dislike them. Because there's no neutral ground in that. I have a friend named Jimmy. You've never met Jimmy. And if I say to you, Jimmy, he's my friend. I grew up with him. You go, so? Yeah, but Jimmy does the best auto restorations I've ever seen in my life. Jimmy's really thin, can run like a wind. When Jimmy was young, the football games were fabulous. And I start telling you more and more about Jimmy. Pretty soon you go, I still don't know Jimmy, but I kind of like to meet him because I kind of like to hear what I'm hearing. The more you know about something and somebody, the more you'll want to become part of that. You like Arizona? Do you? You got to tell me why. You sit back and say, when Nita and I moved here first, and Daisy and Sabrina and all, there was like only donkeys out here. And I should have bought land, but I didn't have any money to buy it anyway, so hindsight's empty with that kind of thinking. But the bottom line is, I just love Arizona. We used to say, Lord, send more people. So he answered that prayer. And now I'm going, no more. So the bottom line is it's what you like. Okay. I got 10 things I'm going to tell you about Arizona because I like Arizona. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, my wife and I were in Texas. And they can have it, because I'm in Texarkana on the eastern border by Louisiana. And I did this. Where am I? There's no mountains. There's no way to find out where you're at. So I got almost a sense of vertigo. It's like, give me back to Arizona. I have to have, okay, here I'll give you 10 things that I like about Arizona. Do you know that there are 3,928 mountains and peaks and summits in Arizona? More than Colorado, more than Utah, more than Wyoming, more than any of the other mountain states. I mean, it's a hiker's dream. You know, you got 26 peaks over 10,000 feet tall. That's bragging rights. Keep on going. Do you know that the Ponderosa pine, which stretches from Flagstaff all the way out to New Mexico border, is the largest strand of that pine in the world? That's wait a minute. You talk about Arizona. Okay, do you know we have more wilderness areas in Arizona alone? 90 of them, versus the entire Midwest, which just has 50 of them. Do you know you can put all of New England and Pennsylvania in Arizona and have a whole lot of land left over? Do you like Arizona? Yeah, I'm thinking you might. Do you know that 17% of Arizona is buildable? I mean, they're going to build houses between Phoenix and Tucson, okay? Just like they're doing between LA and San Diego. Let them. I think it's great. Because they can't touch 83% of the land because it's owned by the Indians, or it's owned by the federal, or state, or the state parks, or fed parks, or BLM, and you start going down the list. I mean, I didn't even say Grand Canyon. I didn't say Oak Creek yet. See, the more you know about Arizona, keep on going. Lake Powell, Lake Mead, the deepest lakes in the United States, man-made. How about this one? Dispersed camping. Do you know what that is? Well, if you go to Texas, you can stay in their KOA. That's it. Otherwise, you got to know somebody to give you permission to go stay in their land. If you want to hunt in Texas, you got to get permission to hunt on land. Here in Arizona, you just get a ticket, get a tag, get a license. The end result is there's so much open space. I take your trailer and I could just go. And you sit back and say, why? Because Texas has no public land. We have 83% of that divided among all the other entities. I'll just give you a couple more. Do you know that Arizona is the only state in the union where there's a mule that delivers the mail? It's the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I like that. You know the average elevation of the state of Arizona is? The average elevation. Because if you ask somebody from New England, they go, oh, that's just hot. You know, they have waste management do their golf games because nobody else will. So the end result is, what's the average elevation in Arizona? It's 4,000 feet. You know where the center of the state is? Mayor. Do you know more people get bit by rattlesnakes in Arizona than any other state in the union? I like that. I think that's cool. I don't want to get bit, but I like the snakes. All of a sudden you go, do you like Arizona? Of course I like Arizona. You don't like Arizona? Leave. That's okay with me. Because the bottom line is, there's plenty of people that like me. We love this place. Okay, now you sit back and say, why tell you all that? Because all of a sudden you get the picture that I like Arizona. But tell me about your picture of God now. Because the more you know about the Lord, the more you know about the God who made us, the more you know who he is, well, the more you'll sit back and say, I love him. We're going to do Psalm 23, verse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know why we're going to do it? Because it says, the Lord is my shepherd. It's in the Hebrew, it's Yahweh Roi. Yahweh Roi. Say it. Yahweh Roi. Okay, you're Hebrew scholars now. Okay, and the end result, now you know how to say the Lord is my shepherd in the Hebrew. And you go, why is that a big deal? Because all of a sudden, if you know who he is and why he does what he does, all of a sudden you can relate to it and let it become part of you. It is then part of you. I was at Walmart. Got to make sure I get the right store. I'm at Walmart, and there's a guy with, you know, the yarmulke? Okay. Now, I wanted to make sure I pronounce everything correctly. So I asked a guy who is Jewish. I asked him, when you say Psalm 23, verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, how do you pronounce the word for shepherd, Roi? And then how do you pronounce the word for God? And then I made a mistake. I said, Yahweh. And the Jewish guy immediately reacted, because in Jewish understandings of God, you do not say the name Yahweh because you may offend God and therefore you may blaspheme his name if you don't say it correctly. Got that? The more I know God and the way that Jewish people reverence him, the more I go, we need to be more Jewish. Because he's not only the shepherd, he's the one who does the shepherding. Take the name Jesus Christ. Everybody goes, oh yeah. Well, in the world, it's a swear word. You know, you hit your hand on a truck or a tractor, and all of a sudden, what comes out of your mouth? Well, what comes out of your mouth is what's in your heart. Well, for a Christian, you say the name Jesus Christ. Well, what does the name Jesus mean? No. Yahweh is salvation. And then what does the name Christ mean? It means the anointed one. It's Jesus, Yahweh is salvation, and here's the anointed one to do it for you. So you sit back and you take it back into its Hebrew form. You go, Yahweh Christos. Or all the way back and you go, why is that important? It's because the end result is when you can start to understand what he's doing and who he is and how he's done it, it changes your life. Throw me up the translation of the word Yahweh. See these 4 little letters here on the bottom? Okay? Hey, it's Yod, Hey, Wah, Hey. The word Yahweh comes out of Exodus 3:14. And in Exodus 3:14, Moses is talking to God. And he says to God, God, I need to have your name so when I go get the people of Israel out of Egypt, I'll tell them who sent me. Because what we have right now is people who can say the name Jesus Christ. Hello, do you realize what you have? You got the essence of eternity in your hand. Moses is sitting there out in the desert all by himself looking at a burning bush going, who are you? What's your name? Why do I have to do what you want me to do? Because I don't know you. And then you get God saying this. This is the primitive name of God. It's the first name of God. It's a name that's now becoming more and more in usage. Before I explain this out, language has a way of changing. It always moves. It morphs into something, or it denigrates into something. How old is the letter J? You say it all the time. Jesus, John the Baptist. The letter J is about 500 years old. It's what the letter J is a superlative I, a superlative Y. Watch this. See the first letter up here? These are written the English way, from right to left. But Hebrew is written from what? Left to right, from right to left. It's backwards. The first letter in Hebrew for Yahweh is a yod, which is what we now use today as I, because in Hebrew there are no vowel markings. There's 22 letters. That's it. The new ones in our diction, our letters, our alphabet is actually growing because we keep adding to it. You say, no, it's never happened. Well, you watch in history watches it grow. That's where the J came from. And they put the J in there. Why? So it would have power. It was superlative. How old is the word Jehovah? It's about 500 years old. They took the word Elohim and they took the markings off the word Adonai. Both of them are names for God, and they put them together so that became a new word, Jehovah, with the J marking, so that, number one, because there were so many Jewish people scattered in the world, but guess what? Watch this. The concept of a single God became popular. And the second one is nobody wanted to offend the Jews and the Jewish population, because the bottom line is nobody wanted to say Yahweh incorrectly. So there's a constant movement as it grows. Now, I'm going to show you how they got Yahweh out of those 4 letters without vowels. In fact, what's really interesting is the original Hebrew didn't even have spaces between the words. You just had to have knowledge enough to be able to pick up what was available as you read through it. Here he goes. That's a yod. That's a hey. That's a wah. That's a hey. Out of that they get Yahweh. How do they do that? Okay, say it with me. Yod, hey, wah, hey. Say it again. Yod, hey, wah, hey. Say it again. Yod, hey, wah, hey. Say it again. Yod, hey, wah, hey. Yahweh. So all of a sudden you're now Hebrew scholars, and you now know how to read Hebrew because you've read the great word out of the Old Testament. This is probably the greatest understanding of who God is, because it comes across as, what is the translation? I am. I am. It's not I is, I am. But it's not just I am. It's I am, I was, I will be, I have been being, I am the uncaused cause. I'm the one who does it all, and I'm sending you to go do my job. Go ahead, Moses, do the work. And the end result is, when Moses went to Egypt, to the Pharaoh and to the elders of Israel, he was able to say his name is Yahweh. Jehovah's becoming more and more popular. We use that word now to Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah, and keep on going. But the end result is the word Yahweh, as language morphs, is now going to become even more and more important, because we're trying to get back to the origination of who God is in our life. Run with that. It's so much fun. Okay, now, take with your Bible with me. This is Psalms 23. I'm going to read it to you out of the Living Translation. Why? Because it's good for people who haven't read the Bible a lot. I can do it in King James. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, he makes me lie. But that's language that's archaic already. Watch this language. The Lord's my shepherd. I have everything that I need. He lets me rest in a green meadow. He leads me beside a peaceful stream. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths to bring glory and honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I'm not afraid, for you're close beside me. You and your staff, they protect, they comfort me. You prepare a feast before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint me, my head with oil. My cup runs over. I mean, dry climates, they put oil on people's heads just to keep them from chafing and, all that white stuff. Surely goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Okay. Yahweh Roi is used one time in the Old Testament. Here, Psalm 23. And the reason it's used only one time is why? Because the concept is all the way through the scriptures. Jesus says in John 10, I'm the good shepherd. He says it twice. So you sit back and go, why the shepherd understanding? Because if you go to Isaiah 53 and you read that, the context is sheep are really stupid. Dumb. They just roll over and die on you. Okay. When I was a kid, my dad had a dairy, and my dad would stand in the alleyway from the milking parlor to the corral, and we had a bull named Charlie. Charlie weighed 1 ton. Big Holstein bull. I had dreams as a kid. I'd climb a haystack and I'd look behind me and here comes Charlie climbing the haystack behind me. I would be in sweats trying to get away from Charlie. Well, my dad would stand in that alleyway and the bull would come running because that's what bulls do, I guess. He'd come running and my dad would just, hey! Very, very loudly. So I don't want to break your eardrums, but like this. And Charlie would stop on a dime, turn around and walk the other way. I always thought my dad was Superman because of all that. And then my dad bought some sheep. We still don't know why he bought this sheep. But the end result is he would be in the alleyway, and here come the sheep. And the sheep would come running at my dad, and if he'd go, hey! And then they would go here and over here and then through here and one there through his legs. They keep going. Sheep are, nobody can understand sheep. They're the dumbest of all the animals. And that's why they need a shepherd. And that's why Jesus is the shepherd of us, because otherwise we crash and burn every time we turn around. You sit back and say, that's not true. Oh, come on. Be real. Do you realize what you've been doing for the last 20 years? It just scares people when you start reading the histories of what people have been up to. When we sit back and say we're left to our own choices and our own devices, we crash and burn. That's why we got to have a shepherd. You sit back and say, how do you know you have a good shepherd? Well, there's 4 lines in here. Okay, read the first line again. Psalm 23, verse 1. The Lord's my shepherd. He's my Yahweh Roi. I shall not want. You see, if he's your shepherd, you're not in a case of wanting. See, the New Testament teaches this very clearly in the Corinthians, that one of the things that we really need in our spiritual life is contentment. And if you're not content, then you are wanting. I'm not talking about needs, I'm talking about wants. And if you're not content, then all of a sudden you're grabbing for something that's not necessarily what the shepherd has implied for you. So the end result is, what is it we're after? We're after something that sits back and says, Jesus, take care of me so I get in a position where I trust you for everything and I'm content with what I have. So the end result is people can see the Spirit of God working through me instead of me striving just to get what I want out of this life. Because that's the American dream. Hello? Hello? And the American dream is get what you can. Rise up from your bootstraps. None of that's ultimately wrong because you are given that right. That's part of our Constitution. But the underlying factor is he's the shepherd who's going to take care of you through it all. Now, how do you know if Jesus has been doing a good job or not? Not if you've been doing a good job, if Jesus has been doing a good job. There's 4 lines. I want you to walk through them with me. He makes me lie down in green pastures. It's verse 2. He makes me lie down in green pastures. A sheep won't lie down until his tummy's fed. And what Jesus does is he makes sure that we're taken care of so that we can go find a green field, which is him leading us, so we can lay down. I'm an old dairy guy. Do you know that cows have 4 stomachs? They got to do what is called chewing cud. They can do that after the milking parlor's done, after the feeding's done. They go out in the corral, they lay down, and then you watch them with their mouth go back and forth. It's necessity, because if they don't have that, they don't have very much milk at the next milking. Same thing with sheep. You got to let them sit down, lie down, and do what they need to do so they can be who they're supposed to be. Stupid. Okay? I probably shouldn't use that word. Lloyd's going to talk to me about that. I know. But that's what I think. I can't help that. That's what I think. Okay, he lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. You kind of go, why does a sheep need still waters? Because their mouth is formed in such a way that if the water's moving, they can't drink it. And what happens with a sheep, because he's kind of S-T-U-I-P-I-D, if the water's moving, he'll actually go out into the water to get a drink. Well, they have something called wool. Wool gets wet, wool gets heavy. Then you know what an automobile looks like in a flash flood when it's rolling down the creek? Well, that's what a sheep looks like when it's rolling down the creek, and then they die. They've got to have still waters, and they've got to have a place to eat. What is Jesus doing for you that gives you still water and a place to lay down? See, and if your head is so full of stuff that you can't lay down, then you have the wrong shepherd. See, chaos, Desi said it at the first service, this world is full of chaos. Well, chaos is also a shepherd. It's dependent upon you to figure out who you're following so you can get to the place of where peacefulness runs inside of you. Here's the third one. He restores my soul. The soul out of the book of Thessalonians really inculcates your mind, your emotions, your will, your intellect. What happens is that you get to a place where you either choose chaos, and you know what that does. I mean, real honest, I don't watch a lot of news anymore because I get really mad. And maybe it's because of my age, maybe it's because I've been around the block 347,000 times, but the end result is I get torqued at some of the things these people are saying and doing. Even the Olympics, they're pushing that. Never mind, I don't want to go there, because chaos is a shepherd. I'd rather have Jesus be my shepherd, because then he'll restore my soul and I get to a place of peace. You all know Galatians 5:22? Fruit of the Spirit, love, and joy, and peace, and patience, and kindness, and goodness, and gentleness, and faithfulness, and self-control. That's what happens when he's the master, when he's the shepherd. Well, the real deep part for me in this is that when he is the master, one of the things that comes along with it is that he shepherds inside of you the restoration of your soul, and you get, watch the word, peaceful or peace. I can't prove this, but I think I'm right. When you take a look at those 9 statements, I think they come in triplets. And you have love and joy and peace as the first triplet. Well, God is love. So you never have to say, I wonder if God loves me. Isn't he love? Okay, so it's an oxymoronic question. It means it has no answer for it. God loves you. He just does. He does. But what if he loves you and you're not very peaceful? Or you sit back there and you say, joy. Joy is the business of heaven, C.S. Lewis. What if you're full of joy and you're not very peaceful? Then your joy is really tumultuous and it comes out in weird fashions. I think the deep part of love and joy is that there's the peace of God, because God, not only is God love, watch this, he's also joy, he's also peace. And when you have him shepherding you, one of the results of that is your whole spirit and psyche becomes peaceful. And if it's not, then you're following the shepherd called chaos. Take your choice, people. And the end result is this. If you watch enough news, and what you're doing is bombarding yourself with chaos, then your peace will start to emanate and slip away, and you need to start going, no, I need to go back to him. Just an aside. Franklin Graham sent me this book, Psalms and Proverbs. So I'm reading Psalms and Proverbs. I'm just reading it. I'm not studying it. I'm not trying to get smarter. I just want what's inside of them. Proverbs tells me I'm a stupid person at times. Oh, there's that word. Okay, but bottom line, that's what I am at times. But the bottom line is overshadowing me, because I'm the sheep, is the shepherd who brings love and joy and peace. Okay, now here's the fourth one. It's all together. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He gives me nice quiet water. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Which means this. If your life is going the wrong way, you got the wrong shepherd. If your life is going the right way, you got the right shepherd. You sit back and say, what's up to me to decide? No, that's God that decides that for you. And it's Jesus who makes it happen for you. And it's the Spirit who works it through you. But at the end result, you'll be so peaceful in it, you'll go, that's the right thing I want to do. I want everybody in the room to have peace. Because that's the one thing I can't find in the world right now. They say they have a lot of joy, but I don't believe them anymore. They say there's a lot of love, but I think it's selfish. One thing I know is that they don't have what I have. They don't have what we have. They don't have the shepherd who leads us step by step by step. Solomon, son of David, he wrote the book of Proverbs. He did Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. He said it the same way. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Ping. Don't lean on all your stuff. Ping. In all your ways, go to God. Ding. And he will direct your steps. See, in Psalms 23, a little later, it says that he will what? Comfort you with his what? His rod and his staff. That rod is used to beat up on coyotes, wolves, bears, knock them down, knock them out. You do not want to make a shepherd with a rod mad. But then there's also the staff. And staff is used only with sheep. Doesn't work on a cow, doesn't work on a pig, doesn't work on any other animal. And it's just a crook, C-R-O-O-K. It sits around. And if you were falling in a creek, he'd reach down with that and he'd pull him out. If you're going in the wrong direction, he would just lift it over your back and he'd do it this way. Now, the best thing about a sheep, though, is that they get to know their master's voice. It says this, when a bunch of shepherds got together in Israel, spend the night, one of them would sleep in the doorway of where the enclosure was, where the sheep were held. And the next morning, the shepherds would all come, because some of them wanted to go home to see mama. And the shepherds would all come. They'd all call out for their sheep. The sheep knew the voice of each shepherd individually, and they all went to the correct shepherd. That's where we're at. Here's a clue. There's only one Jesus. How many? One. And he's with the Father, and he sent the Spirit, and we all get to follow him. We all get to love him. We all get to do this thing. And his job, watch this, is to shepherd us if we let him. And I'm just saying, when the end result happens and you get shepherded, you'll be able to lie down in green pasture. You'll drink still waters. You'll be able to what? Have your soul renewed. You'll be able to what? Walk in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Now, Lloyd said, put some examples in there too, Harry. And I always do what the pastor says. So I asked my wife, can you put a couple examples in there? Show us. And then also maybe show you a little history of the vineyard as well. The years we've been here.
Good morning. Here we are. Good morning. I wanted to share a verse that I love. It's Proverbs 18:10. And of course, it went away. But it says the names of God are a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. I absolutely love that verse. And I love that Lloyd is having us do the names of God. Because if we run into that strong tower, like God is El Roi, he sees us, he's Jehovah Jireh, he's Jehovah Rapha, we can run into that tower, that structure, that building of his names that surrounds us. And then we're safe. And I absolutely love that. So Harry asked me to talk about 2 different times that shepherd crook grabbed our necks and pulled us. And it is how this church got started. If you don't know, Harry and I moved here in 1988. And we started this Vineyard Church in Prescott for 3 years. Then we moved to Prescott Valley. And we retired in 2015. So 27 years we were the pastors here. And how that got started. In 1987, we were pastoring a Dutch Reformed church. We'd been there for 10 years. And the funny part about that is Pam Hazard over here was part of that church called Open Door Community Church. And Dick over here, Dick and Elizabeth, raise your hands. They were part of this Open Door, or he was, I think, part of Open Door Church. So from 1980 to 1987, we're part of this church. We're starting it like we did here. But during those times, the Vineyard was starting, like John Wimber was teaching in Anaheim. And before him was a guy named Ken Gullickson. Anybody here know that name? I know Desi does, yeah, okay. He was actually the person who started the Vineyard. He had a very good heart for gathering people together, and he started it in California. Well, he had moved on, and it had grown a lot, and he gave it to John Wimber to be the leader of. Well, this is years later, 1988, Harry and I are still in Ontario, California with this church that we started, but we're going to all these things Vineyard in Anaheim and the Sunday nights and to different conferences and so on. We had gone to a conference that Ken Gullickson was leading about how to plant churches, how to start churches. And I go up at the end, and I'm crying, and I'm getting prayer, and it's wonderful. Well, God is changing our lives. In the front row, Harry's sitting there waiting for me. This guy comes up and sits next to him. Doesn't know him, they don't know each other, whatever. They start talking. Ken Gullickson is the guy who sat there, and after a few minutes, this was totally a God thing, a Holy Spirit thing, he turns to Harry and says, I'm going to Massachusetts to start a vineyard. Would you like to come? And Harry goes, sounds good. We've been there 7 years at this other church. Maybe it's time to move on. And we loved what we saw in the Vineyard. We loved the worship where you sing to God, not about God. We loved praying for each other and really getting down to the nitty-gritty. Well, on the way home, Harry says to me, how would you like to move to Massachusetts? And I said, sure. That was a God thing. All of our families in California, all the grandparents, we have 3 little kids at the time. Mind you, we had no job in Massachusetts. We had no house in Massachusetts. And we were part of the Dutch Reformed Church that gives you your salary, of course, but it also gives you health care and annuities and, retirement. Well, we're giving all of that up to go Vineyard. So we get our 3 kids into our little Malibu station wagon. Anybody else have a Malibu station wagon, a mom car? And we drive cross country with our tent trailer behind us all the way to Massachusetts. And God gives us this house, literally like 6,000 square feet. It's a carriage house to a mansion where the carriages and the horses actually used to live. And Desi and Sabrina became our home group leaders in that church. They were living in Rhode Island. We'd go to their house every Wednesday night, learn about Vineyard stuff even more, the praying for each other, the worship. It was beautiful. So we're there, and we're in this big house. They'd come visit every weekend with their 4 kids. Our kids all became very good friends. And Desi and Sabrina walked us through healing. We've been pastoring for 12 years at that point, and there's stuff there that needed to be healed. There was stuff in both of us that we had gone through before we met each other that we had to have healed, prayed through, forgiveness, so on, stuff like that. So that was a great 9 months that we were there. In the middle of it, in December, they're talking about dreams. Joseph had a dream, Mary had a dream, Joseph had another dream, dreams that God did prophetically. Well, one night I go to sleep and I have a dream that I still remember, and that's very unusual. I don't usually remember my dreams at all. But we're driving on 69 from Prescott Valley into Prescott, and you get over where Gateway Mall is, In and Out, Olive Garden, all of that. You go over that rise and you see Thumb Butte, you see the valley that's Prescott. And in this dream, we've never been here before, mind you, never. I'm seeing this vision of us doing that and God's voice saying, that's where I want you to go. And we didn't know where we were going to go. This 1 year in Massachusetts was a 1 year thing, and we're going, okay, God, where are we going to go? So I'm going, Prescott, Arizona. Never been there, never anything. Within weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks, we get a phone call from a guy who was in our open door church, Bruce Hamill, and he calls and goes, I don't know why, but I'm supposed to tell you that Prescott is beautiful. I go, well, that's weird. I mean, this is before cell phones, before anything. Like, I don't even know how he got our phone number. We're in Massachusetts renting a house. And then my sister, who lives in Mesa, calls us, and she goes, I'm supposed to tell you that Prescott is beautiful, and Arizona's a great place to raise your kids. So I'm going, okay. So I guess we're not really dumb. We finally decided to come here for the stupid. We're not really stupid, since that's your... We come here for a weekend. Ken Gullickson again, knew a guy who was a dentist in Prescott who had a guest house, so we get to stay there for free, and we walk around and we like what we see in Prescott. Harry loves softball, I love volleyball, they're both big here. Just like what we see. But we see there's no jobs to be had. 1988, it's not a very big city yet. There's no jobs to be had, and there's like a church on every corner. And you go, God, are we hearing you right? And I believe that God, if you're like this on something, he goes, no, maybe you can't have it yet because you're too focused on that. But if you go like this, whatever you want, God, then he'll say, okay, I'll give it to you. So the first 24 hours we're here, it's like, no, we heard God wrong, this can't be. So then we go for a hike up Thumb Butte to the top, and we're praying, okay, God, if we heard you wrong, fine. Just show us where to go next. And so then the next 24 hours, the guy who we're staying with, he takes us to dinner, and they said, oh, you definitely could get a job here. And in fact, I have this guy right here that can give you a job. So Harry gets a job. And then they both said, come here with the Vineyard. There's no church like that in Prescott, and we need a Vineyard church in this area. So, okay, thank you, God. So we came here. So those are 2 times when God said, go to Massachusetts, which was in your brain a really stupid thing to do. No job, no house, no anything. 3 kids, taking them away from grandparents, all of that. And then we're in Massachusetts. We don't know where to go. Again, he had maybe a job. He had to sell insurance to make some money. And then he threw newspapers, guys, at 2 and 3 in the morning for 2 or 3 years. And then he tried to wake up and preach on Sunday morning. It's like, hello. So anyway, we're thankful God did that because this church would not be here if he hadn't pulled us and if we hadn't listened. So be careful of what you do, and then when you ask God for something, because he might just give it to you, and he might just send you on a journey that is certainly nothing that you anticipated, and yet look at the blessing that comes from it. So that's it.